Welcome to Keeping It Off. My name's Joel, and I've lost a lot of weight. But I've also gained a lot of weight. And I did that over and over, losing and gaining until eventually I lost hope. Then I found real stories of people who had lost massive weight and kept it off for years. And I realized that if they could do it, maybe I could too. So in this podcast, you'll hear those stories. People who succeeded with a range of tools, from diet and exercise to medications, bariatric surgery, and more. What matters isn't just the weight loss method, but the habits and mindset shifts that enable them to transform their lives. If that resonates with you, join me as I learn from some amazing people who are losing weight and keeping it off. Joining me on the podcast today is Rob DiMedio. 5 years ago, Rob was living with severe sleep apnea and genuinely worried he might not wake up one night. Since then, he's had bariatric surgery, lost over 130 pounds, and he founded Busy Bariatrics, a coaching program that teaches sustainable lifestyle changes through fitness, nutrition, and community. In this conversation, we talk through Rob's personal journey, as well as the method he developed for teaching his clients how to achieve success with their health goals long-term. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I think you will as well. If you'd like to support the show, you can share this episode with a friend or on social media, and leave a positive review wherever you're watching or listening. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the show. So, Rob DiMedio, welcome to Keeping It Off.
Thanks so much for having me, Joel.
Absolutely. It was great to meet you and to see a little bit about your story. You're very open about your story on Instagram and other platforms. I know you've been on many podcasts before, so really grateful to have you on and hear a bit about your story.
It's kind of amazing now that I'm 5 years post bariatric surgery. I'm always honored when people have me on in their first season because I feel like either I'm doing a really good job or they just realize I'm an easy get for season one of their show. So either way, it's an honor, and I'm happy that we get to spend some time and talk about what makes bariatric surgery successful, what makes weight loss successful, and just catch up with each other.
For sure. Well, I will say, as a fellow content creator, I appreciate the easy get, but I also appreciate when there's like a quality behind the person I'm getting. It's great to have access to somebody, but it's really especially great to have access to you with all of your experience, wisdom, knowledge. I really appreciate some of the stuff that I've gotten to absorb from you already. I know, as I've said, you've shared your story on many platforms before, but assuming someone's listening that has never heard from you before, they've never heard your story, they're not familiar with you, just give us kind of a introduction to Rob DiMedio and your health journey so far.
Yeah. So to give everyone an idea, I'll start like in kindergarten. I was a husky kindergartner and was traditionally like a chubby kid. I would say I was happy. I had a good home life. I joke that like my biggest problem growing up was I grew up in a big Italian family, which meant Sunday dinners, a lot of spaghetti and meatballs, lasagna. Like I ate incredibly well for a 6-year-old. High school, I played football. I leaned out. And then in college, senior year of high school, I blew out my shoulder. So all the ligaments in my right shoulder were completely snapped off. So I stopped working out immediately, going from working out 3 hours a day every afternoon, playing football, track, and then lifting 3 to 5 days a week in the morning before school, to doing absolutely nothing. Add in the fact that I knew that my high school career of sports was over. I wasn't going to be able to play sports in college. I had told myself I wasn't going to drink as long as I was an athlete. And I did what I think a lot of high school seniors and college kids do. I started drinking and eating pizza more often than I did. I didn't really care about my nutrition, and I gained the freshman 15 every single year of college, and then went to grad school and gained the grad school 15 every single year. Then got my second master's and gained 15 pounds every year of that. And it was just a very subtle increase over time of 15 pounds at a spot that ultimately got me to 365 pounds. I went in for my pulmonology appointment because at that point I had sleep apnea, and they were telling me that I was waking up twice a minute, essentially. So I was almost hemorrhaging myself or seizing myself awake, to the point that they said that I'm burning out my CPAP machine. And in true big man fashion, I said, okay, let's just get the next size up. And they're like, no, you don't understand. It doesn't work like that. You are at the highest level CPAP machine they have. You're going to die. And that was something that you don't necessarily think you're going to hear at 35 years old. And I realized I had to make a change. I went home, I locked myself into the basement at my computer, and I looked up rapid weight loss. That is a horrible rabbit hole to go down, but I found bariatric surgery, and I ended up having it at the hospital that my wife worked at. And it was kind of comical because I didn't tell her I signed up for anything. And in true fashion, she's like, "Did you sign up for bariatric surgery?" And I said, "No." And she was like, "You know that like I get access to the data and everything, and it pinged that you came through because we have the same name." And I was like, "Oh, I'm a moron." So as you're listening to this episode, just be mindful, people, that like I know a lot about bariatric surgery. I know how to coach clients on how to lose and maintain weight loss, but there are some gaps in myself. So I am no more perfect than anyone else who's listening at home.
Got it. Makes sense. I want to ask, were you ever open to bariatric surgery before, like you basically got the note from the doctor that said you're going to die?
So the fun part was my primary care physician, like the year before, actually recommended bariatric surgery. And I was like, "Nah, that's 600-pound life stuff." Like, I was a very happy fat guy. You know, I could still move. I could dance. I joked that I was kind of like Kevin James. Like, you know, everything was good in my life. And when I went to my PCP the first time he recommended it, I was like, "Nah, I'm good." To the fact that I left the referral slip for bariatric surgery in his office. He kept it in the file. And when I came back after my pulmonology appointment, I was like, "Hey, I am considering bariatric surgery." He's like, "Oh, really? You mean what I asked you to do like 2 years ago?" And I'm like, "You didn't ask me to do this." Like, "Well, here's your chart, and here is where I wrote the script for you 2 years ago." So true New Jersey fashion, my doctor is a friend of the family's. He is Italian, and he is a spiteful man that out of love was like, "No, I've recommended this." He thought I was a great candidate, and I think it's a good lesson of I wasn't ready to hear that message 2 years earlier. But when I did it this time, I really took it to heart. I made sure that I attended support groups. I started researching everything I needed to know about nutrition. I started tracking my calories and my steps and really committed to everything. And even prior to bariatric surgery, I was able to lose 55 pounds, which is the largest amount of weight I've ever been able to lose on my own.
Got it. I guess two questions kind of to follow up with that would be, this is fast forwarding a bit in your story, but you work with clients now. What makes them and what made you at the time a good candidate for bariatric surgery? Like, as opposed to just, you know, approaching it more traditionally, diet and exercise, that kind of thing.
That's a really good question. I don't think I've been asked exactly. So I want to think about, I guess I had a habit of being able to lose, I'd say 15 to 20 pounds at a time. And then whenever I hit that like 20-pound mark, I almost like hung the mission accomplished banner, you know, in my house, and was like, "Okay, I'm no longer going to work out. I'm not going to live on a diet of chicken, broccoli, and a can of Diet Air. I'm not going to be doing endless hours of cardio anymore." And I would then, of course, revert back to I'm sitting on the couch, playing video games, eating pizza, drinking beer, slamming chicken wings after drinking all day, and going from there. What I notice is what makes bariatric patients successful, and this is really anyone else in their weight loss journey, I believe, is when they stop looking at it as a diet and start looking at it as a lifestyle. And the more that they take the time frame off of I need to get down to my goal weight within a year and then I'm going to stop doing everything, but more of I'm changing my life that I am more active. I am conscious of what I'm eating. I have habits in place that work well. I show up for myself and I respect my boundaries around food and other vices that I have. And I found healthy sources of dopamine that reflect my goals and my nature. The more that people do those sort of things, the better I find they have long-term results. And from coaching hundreds of bariatric patients, we actually have a lot of data over the last 3 years that have shown that my clients who stay longer than the initial contract length lose about 35 to 40 pounds on average, whereas clients who just stay for either the 3 or 6 month minimum contract tend to only lose about 3 to 4 pounds. And what we found from behavior change and research studies, most of those people who are doing it for the 4 month period or the 6 month period, they're really just trying to white knuckle to the end of a deadline. Whereas the people who realize, like, look, it's going to probably take longer than 6 months and it's going to probably take a lifestyle change to get lasting results. And it's why our clients stay longer than their time. And some have stayed with me since day one because they realize This is a program that incorporates holidays. It incorporates being a family member. It incorporates all food. It allows us to find ways to move our bodies that we love and enjoy. It puts everything together in a way that they're proud and happy with how they show up.
Yeah, as you were saying that, something that came up for me is basically it reminded me of my decision to have bariatric surgery because I had been successful before. I had lost over 100 pounds naturally without surgery and without medication.
Yeah.
But I ended up putting it back on very rapidly during COVID. And I realized that there was going to have to be a significant change in my life, and it could not ever go back to living this old life. And I knew that surgery wasn't the end all be all because there'd been people in my life and people I was aware of that had surgery and then they'd regained the weight. So I knew that surgery by itself was not the only factor, but I almost felt like by permanently changing my body, I'm getting my plumbing rewired. Essentially, I'm permanently changing my body. It's almost this symbolic act of saying I'm permanently changing myself, not just physically, but also mentally, and also my lifestyle that's going to have to line up with all this because I want a permanent change in my life.
Yeah, and I'm really proud that you did that, and that's the mindset that we had. I wish more bariatric patients had that. I see it all the time. 5 years in the community, one of the biggest decision makers that I notice, and when you look at people's accounts, is how much of your lifestyle are you willing to change? Like, you've made this permanent change where essentially you're like, for VSG, you're removing 80% of your stomach. For Roux-en-Y or Sadie procedure, you're completely rewiring the plumbing in your body. And it still amazes me that more people don't take it seriously, that you are willing to pretty much mutilate part of your body in order to lose weight, and you're not willing to do the basic changes to support the surgery that you've done. It's why when we talk to clients, it's so much about building your habits, understanding the nutrition, staying active, and showing up for yourself, because your life really does have to change if you want lifetime results.
So you signed up for surgery, your wife found out. Let's kind of finish that part of the story and talk about your surgery experience. Which surgery did you have, and what was your experience kind of post-op?
So signed up, I want to say around this time in 2019. And at that point, bariatric surgery was a very popular option within the space. And there was about a 7 to 8 month waiting list where you had to go through medical procedures. You had to get an endocrinoscopy. You had to attend support groups. And the cool thing about my program is they were really focused on teaching you the habits, patterns, and behaviors that would keep you successful. So in your first meeting, there was literally like a column of activities, a column of nutrition, and a column of like mindset work. And you had to pick one of each that you were committed to doing in between each meeting and keep a log. So for nutrition, it was tracking all your food. For movement, it was get 5,000 steps a day. For showing up for yourself, it was journaling or writing it down. So I very briefly started by saying like, okay, I'm going to track all my calories. If they want 5,000 steps, I'm going to do 10,000 steps. If I'm going to journal, I'm going to write everything out. And I still kept all my journals and notebooks and material of like, here's what I'm reading, here's what I'm studying, here's what I'm doing, and I'm moving. And slowly and surely, like, the weight started to drop off. And it was kind of comical because by tracking my calories, I did not realize I was spending about 8,000 to 15,000 calories on an NFL Sunday. And when you look at those numbers, you're like, oh man, I got to make a change. So when I lost the first 50 pounds and people were like, well, what are you doing? It was like really stupid answers. Like, I went from 4 slices of pizza in between, because I drove between 2 schools that I split in that year. I went from 4 slices of pizza in between the 2 schools to 2 slices of pizza and still ate my lunch. Like, that was the behavior change that we really did. It wasn't anything drastic. It was just a gradual reduction of calories with a focus on protein, and just continued to tinker and tweak and get the numbers under every single time.
And so that weight loss happened basically before surgery, right? And so were you ever tempted to basically say, well, this is working for me, maybe I'll just keep going, I don't need surgery?
Absolutely. And there were a couple points where friends and family are like, well, you're doing so well, do you really need this surgery? And my answer was always yes, because like I've lost weight before. If I had a merit badge for in college, I went to Slim Fast Shakes and I dropped like 30 pounds and was like, yeah, I could do that. Post college, I did a really stupid, like I would eat a Dunkin' Donuts egg wrap for breakfast. I would eat a lean cuisine lunch. And then dinner, I would have another lean cuisine. And I lost like 45 pounds doing that, but then would be amazed that on Friday, when there was like pizza, when I'd work at Best Buy at my second job, I would eat like an entire pizza because I essentially had starved myself the entire week. So I've lost weight like that before. And it was something that I really didn't want to mess this up because insurance had already cleared and approved me. I just looked at it as like, I've already done the paperwork and gotten everything. I want to see this through. And it was comical because I would go to the follow-up appointments and the surgery center would be like, you're doing better than most. And I would be beating myself up of, I only lost 20 pounds this month. And they'd be like, that's really, really good for where you're at. Or it's like, I only lost like 5 pounds, but I've been doing everything right. And they're like, you just have to keep going with the habits and it'll work. And it really did. It was comical because my surgeon really did have the same sense of humor that I did. When I met with him the first time, he said, look, if you need this surgery to make yourself throw up to stop eating, you do not need a surgeon, you need a psychologist. And that's when I knew like you had to do behavior change with this. But when we got to the surgery point, he went to me, he's like, wow, 60 pounds lost. I don't know. Maybe we don't do the surgery. I'm like, really? And he's like, nah, I'm just kidding. We already did all the insurance paperwork. It'd be more of a pain to not do it than to do it. We're cutting you open today. And we went under and everything went smoothly afterwards because I listened to my instructions. I followed all the results and I did the work.
And what surgery did you end up getting?
Vertical sleeve gastrectomy. So VSG is where they keep essentially all of the small intestine, large intestine intact, but just remove 80% of your stomach so that you have a smaller capacity to eat. So that really did keep me where post-surgery, first 2 weeks, they had me on a clear liquid diet and light protein shakes. 2 more weeks of a puree stage, 2 more weeks after that of like soft, flaky foods, and then a very limited intake for about 6 months after that.
So one thing I've noticed as, I had bariatric surgery 10 months ago now, there's a period of time, and I think I'm maybe slightly still in it, but maybe getting out of it, where it's almost like you don't have to try that hard because the surgery is doing the heavy lifting. Like
100%.
It is physically preventing you from gaining weight, and you can make maybe not the best choices with food if you can tolerate it, and you can still lose weight because you're not eating the volume of food that you used to.
Absolutely.
And so I'm really curious about you're now 5 years post-op. I'm really curious about that transition from when the surgery was doing the heavy lifting. What was that process like to basically say the surgeries, I'm not getting as much of the immediate effect of it's restricting my food. Now it's more on me. So what was that process like for you, kind of navigating that change?
Oh, I did stupid on steroids that first like 6 months. I think one of the biggest mistakes I made in my bariatric journey was 3 months post-op. I went golfing with a good friend who lives about an hour and a half away. So we met at a golf course 45 minutes away, and I packed my meal. Like I had breakfast before I left. I packed my sensible protein shake. Didn't realize that like playing 18 holes, I'm going to be exhausted and hungry at the end of it. Didn't plan anything on the way home, and I got a Whopper, and I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to eat it, but I only had like a quarter of it. But then realized like, oh, because I was home alone for the bulk of that day, I could eat another quarter later, and then another quarter and another quarter. And then I lost like 5 pounds that week. So I was like, ooh, I ate a Whopper and I lost 5 pounds. That opened up a floodgate of playing this weird game of just the tip of I started eating more fast food from probably that point up until 7 months post-op than I did prior to bariatric surgery. And prior to bariatric surgery, I was spending $750 a month on fast food. So to give you an idea, I was eating more, but it was in weirder quantities or times. So I would be home because we were still pandemic level, and I would get like Wendy's breakfast and I would just eat it all day and still lose 3 pounds. And it opened up this nasty relationship with food where I was almost like eating the worst foods possible and still losing weight until I eventually hit February and hit my first stall and realized like I don't really know anything about nutrition. I'm not taking my fitness as seriously as I should. And I had to start rehauling my whole lifestyle if I wanted to continue to lose weight and build the habits, patterns, behaviors to get me to where I needed to go.
Yeah, I totally track with that. I think I'm in that process right now of, I'm down 180 pounds from my heaviest.
Phenomenal.
And it has done a lot. I've obviously done a lot of work there, but also I recognize that the surgery has given me a lot of benefits and a lot of advantages, especially early on. So now the hard work of readjusting my life, building all these habits and behaviors like you're talking about. So talk a little bit about that process for you. What was that process like when you started? Because obviously your busy method didn't exist at that time. You had to sort of figure that out. So what was that process like of actually building this busy method, but like from scratch?
Yeah, I started to realize that like I might have left money on the table in my first year of bariatric surgery because I was doing like 3 or 4 Peloton classes a day. I was getting 15,000 steps a day. I was eating like a bird, but then binging on food with fast food and with drinking as well. And realized that like I wasn't really doing the behaviors of a bariatric patient, but I was getting the results of a bariatric patient. And why we coach our clients to start as early as possible with everything is for the exact same reason. Bariatric surgery for the first year kind of puts the bumpers in place so that you stay within the range. But that's really a time where you have to rehaul your lifestyle and lean on your sleeve to help get you into the right portions and food choices, which is why we talk about the importance of like looking at your calendar and being intentional about what are we going to eat, when we're going to eat, and how we're going to eat it. Understanding the relationship between proteins, carbs, fats, and how protein helps you build muscle and stay fuller for longer. For staying active, the S in busy, it's finding a sustainable approach. So doing 4 Peloton classes a day isn't really sustainable for a mother with 3 kids under the age of 10, but it's finding a way to move your body every day and focus on resistance training because we've been able to see that it gets the best results long-term for clients. Changing the relationship and behavior with food is important and showing up for yourself. So having those communications with friends and family of, look, I can't go out to the bar and eat pizza all weekend and drink beer. I could be the designated driver and still show up, but I don't need food to be the driver of relationships. So slowly over time, we worked on like what worked for me and what worked for other clients. And we realized like nutrition is just a small part of the lifestyle of bariatrics. Being active is just a small part. So by having these like 5 pillars, it allows everything to go. And that 5th one is the healthy sources of dopamine. It's finding ways to reward yourself that work better. So every diet before bariatric surgery, my answer was, okay, I lost 20 pounds. All right, I'm celebrating by going out for a lavish meal. That'd be the equivalent of being like, hey, I just got out of prison. Well, what are you going to do to celebrate? I'm going to rob a bank. Like, it's the worst reward system you could possibly have. But for so many of us, if we've learned that that's the reward system that we give ourselves when we achieve something, that has to change. And we help our clients put that all together during a very sensitive and difficult time in their life.
I wanted to ask you, you started this bariatric coaching program called Busy Bariatrics. What was the nexus of why you wanted to start that? Because I think on the surface level, someone maybe is not super familiar. They think, well, you have bariatric surgery, it either works or it doesn't work. And that's kind of it, right? Like, so why was Busy Bariatrics necessary, and why did you feel like it was the right thing for you, and what made sense, about that?
Yeah, it was. I joke that I really didn't want to start a coaching business and I really didn't want it to get to where it is today, but I'm really happy that I did. I was showing up in groups like Bari Nation, Connie Stapleton's Bari Aftercare program, Banana Bariatrics. I would be a moderator or a support group leader to kind of help things, as well as have my own Instagram live of Men's Support Monday and Maintenance Monday, where I would interview bariatric patients within the community. And from looking and talking and supporting all of them, I was able to see like, hey, how is this all coming together? But I would hear horror stories of people signing up for coaches and then not getting the results that they wanted, or the coach not knowing what bariatric surgery was. I would hear people at 300 pounds being told to do burpees, which at 300 pounds, no one is doing burpees. I'm sorry. Like it's counterproductive for many bariatric patients to do that much jumping and stress on their joints. Not to say that as they get lower in weight, they can't, but like there's easier ways to build and ramp up into that. So as I heard horror stories with everything, I realized there was a need. And I ended up getting my certification and building. And it was just like Men's Support Monday or anything else. People just started showing up and asking for support. And it grew pretty quickly, but we kind of took the approach, and I took the approach of I'm going to build the coaching program I wish existed when I had bariatric surgery. And even to today, we listen to our clients, and our coaches are constantly asking, how can we make this program better? What resources do they need? What videos do we need to have? And it's really grown into this beautiful thing where if you work out with us, we have a 300 video library of how to do every exercise imaginable so that you get results. We have a 150 video library course so that you can start it right at the day after bariatric surgery, and you can work on specific actionable items to help build everything out. You have support from our coaches that know, who have had bariatric surgery and know how to get results from working with dozens of clients and me on my hundreds of clients at this point. So we've really tried to build something for the bariatric community that can help people at any level of support that they need.
So you already touched on this, but I do want to get your perspective as someone who has interfaced with lots of different people at lots of different phases on their journey. What do you think are some of the common traits, characteristics, signs of people who are successful long-term, and then maybe people who end up falling off the wagon?
If I could sum it up with one word that is the biggest difference maker in people's bariatric journeys, it's lifestyle. I think the more that people realize that, one, it starts in the mind of you have to start visualizing what do you want your lifestyle to look like, and then really emulating and building it back from there. So one of the things we really work on when we bring clients on is asking them, where do they want to be 7 months from now, and where do they want to be 7 years from now? And all the research and data in bariatrics from ASMBS and other scholarly journals and research shows that people who build a lifestyle and maintain it for 7 years have less than a 10% chance of regaining the weight. Before the 7-year mark, that number can be anywhere from 90 to 35% of a chance of regaining all of their weight back.
Wow.
And that's just statistics. You can look that up from ASMBS. That is in multiple medical journals. So when we really teach them, it's the understanding of like, look, you need to change this and make your lifestyle if you want to get the results. If you want to, and I'll use myself as an example, if you want to go back to eating 15,000 calories on an NFL Sunday, drinking 5 days a week, staying sedentary and not moving your body, you're eventually going to get right back to where you were at 365. The clients that are the most successful and the bariatric members in the community who maintain it have completely changed their lifestyle, and they continue to do it not as a diet, but because they've started to identify themselves as someone. It's, I'm not waking up early for 6 months because I have to work out. It's, I am an early riser because that is when I crush my goals. I'm not dieting my way through nutrition. It's, no, I prioritize healthy meals that I love, and I learn to cook because that's going to keep my results. It's not like I'm doing CrossFit or burpees or burn blast camps or anything else because I need to lose this weight. It's, I love to move my body, and I love the endorphins I get from showing up in a communal space and getting the movement in.
Mm-hmm.
And same for showing up for themselves. It's making that conversation with other people around them to be like, look, I am going to be a new person, and I need to do this work for myself.
So I know you've touched on it several times, but I want to kind of revisit because it is just a great scaffolding to kind of talk through this, kind of our conversation today. Basically, when you talk about this busy method, the first one is building habits. And when you mentioned, the most common trait of someone who's successful is basically that lifestyle change. If you just say to someone, hey, change your life completely, that is a really daunting task to undertake, right? It feels impossible.
Absolutely. It is impossible.
So how does building habits play into that? And how do you, even from your story, it sounds like you have this method of starting small, building from there. So to kind of just talk through that.
Absolutely. I'm going to steal a line that I love from our assistant coach, Lisa. She is someone who's lost 60 pounds while working with me, and she did it about half a pound at a time. She was convinced she was done losing weight, got to this point, and then like would drip like every 2 weeks, lose like half a pound here or a pound here. And then over 2 years, lost an additional 50 pounds. And her big phrase that she coaches her clients and our community in is, how do you eat an elephant? Well, you do it one bite at a time. So when we start with a client on their lifestyle, the first activity is like, well, where do you want to be in 7 years? Because we can't really make a goal until we know where you want to be. And we really do have them write out their activities of what do they want their habits to be? What do they want their patterns to be? What does it look like? And then after seeing that, we have to emulate it. If, for an example, Joel, you said like, I want to play in the NFL, it'd be like, okay, well, what does an NFL athlete do? And I think that's where the biggest divide comes from. Well, they prioritize their nutrition and their fitness. They work very hard at it. They spend about 18 to 20 hours on it. When we build their lifestyle out, we then take a look at their calendar and be like, well, what amount of time can you commit to? And the three places we look to determine how we can drive results is asking clients to be like, well, how much time do you have? How much money do you have? And what are you eating? Those three things factor in. Where your time goes reflects where your goals and values are. Same as where you spend your money. So if you're telling me you want to lose 20 pounds, but you're spending $750 in fast casual, there's a little bit of a disconnect there that we either have to increase the effort or lower the expectation. And there's no wrong answer for that, because sometimes there's a happy medium. I would raise the other arm if I could, but I'm doing the best I can right now after bicep surgery. But it's starting to have that conversation with the client of like, look, we don't need you to live on a diet of, chicken breast, broccoli, and a can of Diet Air for the rest of your life. But we do need you to start changing how you're eating. Or if you only have 5 hours because you have 4 kids at home and you homeschool, like one of our amazing clients does, like we have to get creative of where we are focusing our energies and getting everything done. So when we talk about lifestyle change, it really does start in their calendar and then seeing how much time do they have to commit to get that to happen. And we base it on that. For some clients, they have 10 to 15 hours they can commit to each week. For others, it's only 4 to 5. And those look very drastically different. But when they do, we actually adjust it based on what will get them the best results with that amount of time.
Mm-hmm. That is building habits. That's B in the busy method. So U is understanding nutrition. What is it that you had to learn, and what is it that you start kind of your newer clients out on understanding about nutrition other than, well, I can't eat as much anymore?
Yeah, it's different for every client based on when they come in. And it really is interesting because we teach them to look at data themselves so they can coach themselves eventually. What we have every client do is just track their nutrition for 2 weeks. And for some clients, it's like, I've never tracked before and I don't know how. And it's like, okay, so we're going to teach you how to track. For other clients, it's like, okay, I've tracked before, but I've only seen calories. I'm amazed at how little protein I eat and how much fats and carbs that I eat, which is very, very common for everyone. For others, it's I'm hitting my protein goal, but in order to hit 100 grams of protein, I'm doing it by eating like Reese's cups or protein candy bars, and I'm really shooting my calories out of the water. So first thing we do is we have our clients just track for 2 weeks, and then we make gentle incremental changes over time. And it's just these little gentle taps and tweaks so that eventually they're eating the foods they love in the portions that reflect their goals and building out a system that works for them.
So we've done the B, we've done the U. S is staying active. So talk about, what does that look like? Does that mean everyone has to just join a gym and start working out 5 times a week? Or how do you coach your clients on the activity piece?
If I could wave a magic wand and get everyone to go to the gym and strength train at least 3 days a week, I'd probably be out of a job. But I would be very happy if everyone was doing that. But for a lot of clients, it's really just finding out how do they like to move their bodies and then building a system that works for them. If I have a client who really does love Orange Theory classes, I think they're great for cardio. They aren't necessarily the best to build muscle. So it might be something of being like, okay, how do you like to move your body? And then incorporating strength training around that to make you stronger, faster, more reliant. We've helped clients that have ran half marathons. And by incorporating strength training, not only did they not get bulky, they were able to drop almost half an hour off their half marathon times just by getting some strength training in. So it's really finding things that work for them. Even myself now with my bicep tear as of this recording, I can't really lift weights and I'm not allowed to even train lowers yet because of moving the weights with my arm. So for me, I've been able to lose 7 pounds in the last 7 weeks by just committing to a step goal and really making sure that I'm moving my body and reflecting and digesting and moving forward. So it's finding what works for everyone and then just making the proper adjustments so they can get the results.
Really quick, I want to just kind of zoom in on the strength training, muscle building piece of the activity part, because I know for me, being morbidly obese for a good chunk of my life, I thought my best case scenario was I could lose weight and sort of look like a deflated balloon. Like I was just going to like take away the fat and that was going to be my best case scenario. Then I saw I've there's people that kind of inspire me, those certain stories. There's Ethan Suplee, the actor who lost a bunch of weight and kind of is this big jacked guy now. There's Obese to Beast, and I've seen it more often now where I've seen someone morbidly obese kind of become more of this muscular person. So I guess specifically for you and your coaching, after someone goes through bariatric surgery or they've lost a bunch of weight, what does that look like when they're trying to now, because they've been in this mindset of I'm just taking away tissue, I'm just trying to remove this fat. Now that they're changing their goals to I'm actually trying to add tissue, I'm trying to add this lean tissue. So what does that process look like, and how do you coach people specifically on that?
So for a lot of bariatric patients, there is a misunderstanding that in their first year, you either can't build muscle or that you'll just lose weight. And the problem is when you are severely restricting your diet, which bariatric surgery is intended to do. Like for me, I was going from 5,000 to 8,000 calories down to as little as 700 or 300 even in the first month. You're going to lose an equal amount of muscle to fat in the early stages. But if you incorporate resistance training, you will lose slower, but your body composition will look significantly better. For coaching 85% female clients, I will say that the biggest fear that our clients fear is I'm going to get bulky. And the beauty is we have about a dozen clients who have been with me since the beginning. And not only are they not bulky, they are leaner, they are more toned. They get that toned look that they want. And for many, they forget that like the symbol of where a lot of women tend to want to look is that hourglass figure. But people don't realize, like, in order to build an hourglass figure, like, that's where we see the train of, like, you have to grow your glutes. You have to, develop your hamstrings. You have to grow those muscles. The other part of the hourglass is the top part. So by putting a little bit more muscle on your back and shoulders, especially for women, it changes your posture where you put your back a little bit more. It brings your breasts and your pec muscles up higher so that you look firmer. And in your shoulder, it'll give proper tone and definition so that if you're wearing a strapless dress, it can really make your triceps pop and give you that toned look that you want. We've had clients that have lifted heavy with us for 2 years and have only lost about 5 pounds, but their physique looks drastically different during those periods.
Mm-hmm.
And same for our men as well. Like, it's by developing the muscle, yes, you lose at a slower rate, but you also gain a lot of metabolic benefits from that. So for every pound of muscle you put on, you burn an average of 10 calories more per day, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that can add up to about 38,000 calories a year for every pound of muscle that you put on.
Wow. I didn't think of it that way. That's pretty cool. So in the busy method, the Y represents yourself becoming the priority. So what does that mean? Walk us through that step.
I think a lot of the times when we work with clients, we deal a lot with amazing people who show up for others consistently. The average bariatric patient who walks through our doors is traditionally some form of a parent. They work a high profile job or they work two jobs. They are a family member. They are a spouse. They are a healthcare provider. They have no problem showing up for others. And one of the biggest things that we have to coach and teach long term is how you show up for yourself. And that can be difficult for people. Like for me being a fitter version of myself allowed me to show up better for my kids, where I could teach them how to ride a bicycle. Whereas when I was morbidly obese, I was not able to keep up with my kids riding bikes. So simple things of communicating your goals with your loved ones is something we really teach, as well as communicating your new lifestyle changes with people around you so that they're aware that you are changing and working on themselves and growing with them. A big problem that I see is a lot of people say like, well, this person didn't understand my journey. And I was like, well, did you explain to them how important it was to you? And they're like, well, no. And I'm like, well, they're not mind readers. And I think a lot of the times, if people just get better at communicating their goals and dreams, people understand better and they give them a lot more grace and space within their bariatric journeys.
Yeah, I think there's a default position that thinking about ourselves is somehow selfish, or it's, we need to think of others. I know that's kind of how I was raised, but there is this point where if we're going to make this drastic change in our life, we can't just do that without making some real intentional focus on ourselves, our own health. And it's almost like that, what they tell you on the plane, like you have to put your mask on before you help the other person.
100%. And I think of some of our best clients. Like we have a client who has 4 kids and she homeschools, and one has some disabilities that she also has to tend to. But she's lost over 160 pounds working with us. And she would be the first to tell you she has more energy. She's moving her body better. She shows up. She's more mentally clear. She doesn't need as many naps or breaks during the day. Showing up for herself and getting her workouts in and her nutrition together has allowed her to do everything else properly in a way that shows up for her.
So to wrap up our busy method, kind of going through that, you have, the BUSY, but then you also put a little exclamation at the end. So what does that stand for?
That's healthy sources of dopamine. A lot of times, like when we build our habits, we get better with our nutrition, we start moving our bodies and we show up for ourselves, we talk constantly, but we reward ourselves then with either food, alcohol, or retail therapy, which can kind of be counterproductive. So we have to teach our clients, like, how are you going to do self-care or reward yourself in a way that still doesn't derail your goals? Another part of my journey was the fact that, like, when I started, I was 6 figures in credit card debt. And it was because a lot of my rewards came in either food or retail therapy, and realizing that wasn't a healthy way. So teaching them simple techniques as far as just calling a family member and rewarding yourself of, hey, I got my steps done. I just wanted to talk to you. Or I'm going to take my kids to the park and I'm just going to enjoy an afternoon. Finding ways to give yourself rewards without breaking the bank or your caloric budget is part of teaching yourself how to really healthily show up and celebrate your success.
Well, thank you for indulging me to kind of go walk through your method there. One thing I was curious about is when you are seeing your clients, either new clients or even clients you've worked with for a while, what are like myths or things that they're like misunderstandings, I guess you could say, that you're having to battle sort of early on, that you need to kind of you talked about that head game and that mind space change. What are some of those early mindset shifts that need to happen for people to get on the right track?
That could be like 5 to 10 different episodes alone on that. When it comes to building habits, I would say the biggest one is the idea that more is not necessarily better. Better is better. So we kind of teach our clients what's the minimum effective dose we need to drive the needle, and kind of to start with there and then work off of that. For nutrition, I think a lot of people kind of focus on trying to put protein in everything. But if you balance your macros properly and do everything, I think it's a lot cheaper and more fun to have like a 100-calorie bag of Doritos with a turkey sandwich than trying to live off, protein chips that taste like Doritos. I don't want to give brands out so that they don't come after me. But a $5 mini bag of those chips I kind of am like, they don't taste as good as Doritos, and like you're kind of like spending $1 to get a dime's worth of results. Staying active, I think, is the same thing. A lot of people think they need to run or do endless hours of cardio to lose weight, when in reality, if they just strength train and really dial in their nutrition, they're going to get better results long term. For showing up for themselves, I think they think that they need to have everything fixed like within 3 days, when in reality, it's closer to 3 years that it takes to build a lifestyle that they're proud of. And then with dopamine, it's just like, hey, stop shooting yourself in the foot. Like, rewarding yourself with an ice cream sundae is not the best way to show it. It's why, like, I don't necessarily agree with bodybuilding shows, but when I look at a lot of the behavior I see in the bodybuilding community, I do not think it develops a healthy relationship with food, of severely restricting yourself for 9 months and then celebrating by eating massive caloric dumps for 3 weeks after. So finding healthy ways to reward yourself and play the long game, I think, plays a big part. But those are probably like the 5 things I have to fight the hardest on in the community is, hey, maybe we look at it this way. And I have like dozens of clients who have done it this way and get results. So
Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask you about this, and this may or may not make the podcast. So I'm curious about it, because I'm relatively new to the weight loss world, especially Instagram, doing this podcast and then starting to get on Instagram a little bit with the bariatric, and then just kind of the broader weight loss community in general. I'm just kind of almost experiencing it for the first time in a lot of ways.
absolutely.
And one thing I've noticed is I've seen a lot of, because I'm obviously looking for people to follow and get inspired by. I've seen several accounts that have people who have been on weight loss journeys, they've been on health journeys, and they are on, at some point, a bodybuilding stage. And on one hand, that's such a cool journey, right? To go from morbidly obese to a bodybuilding stage. Because there's part of me that's like, well, maybe, my channel's called Joel Gets Swole. Maybe I should try to, go to, train for a bodybuilding show. But then there's a part of me that also thinks, I lived my life for so long in these extremes. Like, I would either be all the way like trying to diet hardcore and trying to like, my best to lose weight, or I would just be like, oh, screw it. I'm just gonna, eat as much fast food as I want. And I'm not going to care. I'll start back on Monday, kind of thing. So is there a danger there when going on these health journeys of swinging so far to this other extreme and not really addressing some of those, more fundamental, I guess, behavior patterns and thinking?
100%. So to give like full clarity, and I have no problem saying this, from having Men's Support Monday, Maintenance Monday, and interviewing probably close to 40 bodybuilders who have done a weight loss journey and come back, I've noticed some habits, patterns, and behaviors in all of them. And that each one has shared in their own part of their journey is that there is this level of, I've swung so extreme for the bodybuilding show that they almost burn out after the show and get what's called post-show blues, where it's almost like, oh, the show's over. Now all the fun's over. How do I do this? And what happens is it almost causes this dark spiral where you're pulling a rubber band back for like 3, 6, 9 months, and then you're snapping it and it's going in the other direction. In a psychological standpoint, this is what we call dichotomous thinking. And where we hear it more often in social media is all or nothing thinking or black and white mentality. It's the idea that we're either completely on or completely off. So what happens is people who do these bodybuilding shows, there are some who do fine afterwards, but the majority that I have seen, especially ones who have a complicated relationship with food prior, which as bariatric patients and people who used to be obese, you already have a complicated relationship with food. You are now almost putting fuel on a fire, which causes it. And I can tell you from my assistant coach, Kylie, who has done bodybuilding shows, she will be the first to tell you that dichotomous thinking really caused massive weight gain after shows, as well as other issues. She has since working with us and becoming a coach. She's losing weight naturally on a easier pace. She says this is her best relationship with food because we've healed it and gotten everything together. For you, Joel, I always joke, like, I bodybuild, like I train like a bodybuilder, but I also have the nutrition that shows like I like a cheesesteak every now and then because I'm from the Philly area. And it's more of a like lifestyle approach of, yes, I do want to train and get swole because I do want to have a physique. I like the fact that I can take my shirt off at the community pool and I can get a couple looks of like, hey, that guy works out. But at the same time, like I like pizza. So I always say like, you don't have to do a bodybuilding show. And if anything, I've seen it do more harm than good over half a decade of interviewing. What I think is better is healing your relationship with food, building a relationship with the gym that you love, and getting swole because you are in love with going to the gym and working on yourself and your body. Our best clients have never done a bodybuilding show. They've absolutely just learned to love the gym because it is a place where they can healthily move their body and get results and get their physiques to look amazing.
Yeah, it makes sense. I appreciate you saying that as someone who's, been a bit further on the journey than I am. So good to hear. Let's say that someone listening has lost weight, whether they did that through bariatric surgery, through GLP-1s, or through just diet and exercise. They had some success, but then they more or less fell off the wagon. They regained some weight and they are feeling ashamed. I know when I regained weight rapidly, there was just a lot of shame. It was just hard to engage. What would you say to that person that, is just hesitant to kind of re-engage?
Start silently. And I say that in the best way possible. Like when we talk about natural weight loss, a GLP-1 or bariatric surgery, I've coached all three of those clients. I've coached clients who have started naturally, had bariatric surgery, and then transitioned to a GLP-1. I've had clients start on a GLP-1, then go natural for a bit, and then choose that bariatric surgery. I've had clients who just went natural and continued and realized like, maybe I don't need bariatric surgery and maintained. When regain happens, and it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. All of the research shows a bariatric patient traditionally gains 10% of their weight back after the initial period, if only because they take their foot off the gas a little bit or they've gotten their results and they simplify. And that's totally fine. Diet and exercise, like the natural way, that number's a little bit higher. And GLP-1s, it's still relatively new, but it's a little bit higher than just if they did naturally when they come off a GLP-1 and regain. But for all three of them, I say, like, look, you have to really get clear on, look at your calendar. Are you working out as often as you are? Are you spending time meal planning or meal prepping or getting your nutrition right? And the answer is almost always no. If you're feeling that shame or guilt, message me because we help so many people just even get started with simple things of, let's go back to hitting your water goal. Let's get back to hitting your step goal, and just understand it's very common, but like sitting in your issues isn't going to fix it, which is why the first rule of Busy Bariatrics is we don't sit in them. We make actionable steps to move you forward.
That's really good. We're coming to the close of our conversation this time around, but I'm curious. I like this question. I definitely didn't come up with it, but I heard it on another podcast and I like to copy it. What's something that we didn't talk about today that you wish we had or you wish came up?
That's a really great question that no one's ever asked me before. Well, we talked a lot about me. I guess my big question for you, Joel, is like the one question I ask all of our clients is, where do you want to be 7 months from now? And where do you want to be 7 years from now? And I think podcasts are cool because they kind of live as an evergreen. So maybe like in 7 months and 7 years from now, when this episode drops, you kind of go back and listen to this part. But where do you want to be in 7 months and 7 years?
Man, you did a jujitsu move on me. So I asked you a question. That's good. That's a good question too. And you're the first podcast guest to interview me now. So
Sweet.
So let me see. So 7 months from now, I would like to. I think my mind just immediately goes to a number on the scale, and that's not the only thing that I want, but part of what I want, I would say, is to, when I was at my highest and I wasn't really sure where I would end up. Like I always thought like somewhere around 225 would probably be a guess for me. So I'm still 20 to 30 pounds from that weight. So I think in 7 months, I would like to have lost that weight, to be strength training consistently, to have built some good habits in my life, and I'm already getting like plenty of people see me and having lost 180 pounds. People say like, wow, you look great. You're doing something great. But transitioning from a person who has lost weight to, like you said, someone sees you and they're like, oh, that person like cares about their health. They work out, they invest in their health, something like that. So that's, I think, maybe not realistic fully in 7 months, but somewhere where I'm basically living the life style of a person who's doing that. 7 years is a good question, because I would say I would love to be firmly in the camp of, like, someone sees me and says that person like really works out, like they're, I would love to be swole, for lack of a better term. I also would, I have kids. I have a 6-year-old daughter, an 8-year-old son. I really want to be a great dad for them, and a great example, and a great husband to my wife. And so just being that we've built a sustainable family system, that all of us care about our health, and all of us are exercising, like, caring about what we put in our bodies food wise. We have fun. We're an active family that can go on a hike or go on an adventure of some kind. Yeah, I think that's kind of the life I see in 7 years as in terms of my health.
Yeah, and I think that's beautiful. So the cool part is we're recording this in September. So in April, you'll kind of get a chance to take a look at that. And what I would do is I would set like, as a calendar person, what I tell clients to do is write those things out and then put it in your calendar 7 months and 7 years from now, and have that in your thing. And then when that date comes up, you'll get a little ding email notification, and you'll get a little letter to yourself of it. So, hopefully you let me know how it goes in April and where you're at. And hopefully in 2032, you message me and say, hey, Rob, here's where I'm at and here's what I did. Keep those in mind when you're having your tough days, man.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really good wisdom. Rob, thank you so much for joining me. I really, really enjoyed our conversation. I hope you'll come back one day on the podcast. We'd love to have repeat guests. And
I would be honored to. And thanks for having me. And it's been really nice to get to know you and listen and learn from you as well.
For sure. So where can people find you online if they want to hear more, follow more of your journey, or maybe even get coached from you?
Everywhere. My Weight History on Instagram, I always say, is the big one. But if you've listened to this episode and you really like it, I'm going to send you, Joel, the link. I actually provide the exact calendar that helps me map out 6 months worth of recipe ideas and meals for my family. So if you sign up for my email list, that's always the best way to get a daily email of what you should be thinking about in your bariatric journey, as well as the insight to get results. I have the Busy Bariatric podcast. Our YouTube page has a wealth of resource and teachable information on there. And then I'm trying to think. Yeah, and busybariatrics.com. So I can send you a couple links. We can put in the show notes and get everything else good from there.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely have everything linked in the show notes. So definitely check those out and take advantage of all the wisdom that Rob is pouring into the internet. Very thankful that you are doing that and giving back. So really, really appreciate your time today. And yeah, thanks so much, Rob.
If you're still here, a few quick things before we end. If you found this content helpful or valuable and you'd like to support the show, there are 2 ways you can do that. First, you can help grow the audience by sharing this episode on social media, or even send it directly to a friend that you think would enjoy it. Second, you can leave a 5-star review on whatever podcast app you're listening with. If you'd like to be a guest on Keeping It Off, you'll find a link in the show notes to a simple form you can fill out, and I'll be in touch. One other note, this show is for information only, not medical advice. I'm not a medical professional, so please check with your doctor before making any changes in your healthcare. Okay, that's all for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you'll come back and check out another episode of Keeping It Off.